if you can name it, there's a guy who's fucked it.
Oh yeah,
Blenders. Guys have fucked blenders.
guy fucking a snake. Yeah,
Guy
no,
who fucked
right.
tables,
The snake pussy.
chairs.
He's got a big anaconda.
There was a problem there. Fix it. Fix it.
Okay, I'm sorry I even said it. I'm sorry I said it. That's, What is good? Welcome to the live stream. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and donate. Yeah, you again. I have been watching it. It just, I'm building up my shit. I'm not going to address Shuli's shit during a live stream. I'm going to make a dope video doing it. I wasn't doing it during a live stream to get involved in their live stream bullshit. This shit you're bringing up, I am seeing, trust me, you've been donating, I've been paying attention, and that's a video thing, not, we bet on live stream thing. That's an exposing video, so I'm waiting to do that. And that will come probably in December. But I have been seeing the shit you've been sending me. Don't worry, I've been seeing it. But I'm not going to go on a live stream and talk about Julian and his bullshit. Or I care about them and their battles. That'll be a video, but thank you for the $4.99. But it's the election. Who's going to be Presidente? Kamala or Trump? I'm watching multiple live streams. It's fucking astonishing to me that we're not going to know who's going to win tonight. The one-off we didn't know was going to win tonight was the year 2000. But now they're all, we don't know that night. Well, obviously the voting has gotten worse, and there's early voting, there's complicated shit. Back in the day, we used to know who was going to be president that night. Everyone agreed on that, not going to know tonight. Although the Republicans are already kind of doing the Kamala's going to win thing from what I see so far, so I don't know. But how was your Tuesday? What are you niggas doing? What's up? What's up, Andy Violin? Will Trump win? I don't know. Trump 2024 U.S. John Rod, yeah. Hopefully. But I don't know. I really don't know, but I hope so. And I hope so from this aspect. Not only do I want Trump to win, but if he wins, we shut the fuck up about Trump. Because if he loses, we may see Trump 2028, which I don't want to see. But, hopefully he fucking wins, though. I'm not gonna know, but, I'm doing Young Turks and Daily Wire coverage, which I'm bouncing between. So, see the two.
I also think it's untrue. It doesn't even work for chimpanzees, by the way, and the evidence for that is pretty clear. And it's also the most, I just can't imagine setting up a social system on a more dismal view of humanity and community than that of power. The only way we can work together is if I force you. Well, no, who wants that? Well, we know who wants it.
Exactly.
We want who? It's tyrants. It's whim-possessed tyrants who want that. What do you like if you want the opposite? Well, you
Kamala
sacrifice
is
upward. Ben, you
destroying
were
him in
talking about
Virginia.
having children.
Wow.
It's like it reorients you in the
Only
world, right?
1%
Because all of a sudden
reporting, but
there's something,
goddamn.
there's someone who's
Now
clearly
they're
more
counting
important than
early
you,
voting, but
and a
goddamn.
time frame that's clearly more important than you right now.
I used to live
And that
in Virginia.
reorients you radically, and that's a sacrificial orientation. And so
Trump is winning Florida.
that was great doing that.
Although
the
I think
gospel.
that
So
was
that's,
expected.
My invitation to be in the academic roundtable was lost in my email inbox, but I would have been there.
Did it go into promotions or
It's probably there, yeah, spam.
spam?
Yeah.
By the way, just a quick indicator, and you can talk more about this. Just a couple of pieces of good news if you want to be in a good mood. Okay, so piece of good news number one: Osceola County, which is one of the most Hispanic counties in America, it's 55% Hispanic. It's heavily Puerto Rican. Donald Trump is on the verge of winning that in Florida, which means that he is, outperforming. Maybe this Puerto Rican, issue with regard to Tony Hinchcliffe making a bad joke. Maybe that has some consequences for places like
Tony
Pennsylvania. I know there have been
Hinchcliffe
worries because there are
cost Trump the
200,000 Puerto
election.
Rican voters in Pennsylvania.
I'm willing to go
So
with
that's
that
a piece of news
narrative.
number one.
No, the thing is,
If
Puerto
Trump
Ricans
loses.
have a good sense of humor. I'm from New
Not
York.
really
I spent a lot of
having,
time around
but-
Puerto Ricans. That non-controversy was so contrived. I'm glad to hear some data actually back up that.
Okay, a couple other pieces of data. As of 7:25 p.m. Eastern Time, according to Decision Desk HQ, Trump currently has a 61% chance of winning the presidency. So the numbers they're seeing, obviously, they think
good. That's very good.
are looking
What was
pretty
the
good.
source?
That is Decision Desk HQ. So this is
And
Although the Young Turks were like 6 p.m., Hillary had 70% chance of winning. That means nothing.
That you're seeing on your screen or maps that you're seeing on your screen as we go through the evening tonight are by way of our partnership with Decision Desk HQ.
And one other piece of data, I know we're not supposed to do exit polls, but I'm going to break my own rule because it makes me happy. And again, the rules don't apply to me since, as a co-owner of the company and a very famous person, they let you do it. So according to the CNN exit poll, Georgia independents broke for Trump by 11%, which is a 20 percentage point swing toward Trump among indies from 4 years ago. Ryan Gerdusky, late of CNN, I enjoyed it. He is suggesting that there's a possibility that Georgia gets called relatively early, as in within the next hour and a half or so.
One more exit poll, since I am not an employee of the company.
Yeah,
so
we
I'm
literally
outside.
cannot fire you.
Can't fire me for this.
Can we make his life miserable?
Yeah, probably.
And
Probably. 25% of black voters in Georgia, reportedly male voters, went for Trump.
Wow.
If that is true and the independence is true, Trump is going to win Georgia, which would be huge. And the numbers would suggest, based on how well he's doing in Florida, there's a famous band, Florida Georgia Line. If you've ever spent any time around there, there's not a lot of difference between North North Florida and South Georgia. So if Trump's going to win by 10,
I will
in
not keep
Florida,
my tongue
I think
in my
he's gonna
mouth.
By the
win,
way, can I just
Georgia.
give a shout out to my boy Ron DeSantis, who has turned Florida into
Yes.
the best
Fuck
state in
you.
America. Okay, Ron DeSantis turned that state from a dead heat in 2018 to a place where registered Republicans outnumber registered Democrats by 1 million. I think it's 1.2 million
I don't
at this
look
point.
low-key
And Miami
Dominican.
just went red in an 18-point swing from 2020. Okay,
You guys
and-
need some.
There's no such thing as a low-key Dominican. Those Klingon forehead motherfuckers. I'm Cape Verdean. I'm not. Dominicans have Klingon foreheads.
a little early for that, but one thing that is positive that we should keep an eye on is, I know it's looking a little ahead, 2030 census is going to radically redo all these numbers. Okay, 2030 census. So I've mentioned this before, my worst case scenario, which has been scaring everybody all over the internet, which is that tonight Donald Trump wins North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, and she wins 270 to 268. But the 2020 census was actually
Because
done
of
wrong.
Omaha, because Nebraska didn't go one win in the state.
And also because the census in 2020 was done wrong. Okay, and they've acknowledged this. Okay, this is perfect. This is like they've said this. The census undercounted Florida, it undercounted Texas, it overcounted New York, it overcounted Delaware and Rhode Island. And so if they'd done it right,
That's where I'm at,
Florida has
Rhode
2 more
Island.
electoral votes. Trump doesn't need to win any of the blue wall states in order to win the election. Okay, and so there's likely to be a lawsuit on that basis. Will that lawsuit be successful? I doubt it, but there will be a lawsuit on that basis if that's the result of the election, which is actually not super improbable given the current odds. Now, what that means for 2030, however, is that as population continues to bleed south, as it continues to bleed to red states, if we do the census correctly in 2030, a bunch of this math gets redone. Florida now has 3 or 4 more electoral college votes, and places like Virginia have fewer, right? California loses electoral college votes. So, for all the sort of despair that you hear all the time from people, things move, things change. I'm old enough to remember when Florida and Ohio were swing states, and now those are bright red. And I think in the future, by the way,
With
Pennsylvania,
Dominicans?
Michigan, and Wisconsin are all trending red.
Goddamn
Virginia, on the
right.
other
They
hand,
can't do
is trending
anything.
blue. I think that's the most likely. Virginia looks like Colorado. Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin, Michigan look very much the same, trending red.
And that 25% black male exit poll is not a big surprise. I mean, we've been talking about the gender wars, and with respect to women, But the Kamala Harris campaign,
There's any other election, he knows I'm going to be president. We're not allowed to know until tomorrow.
even one single ad, the entire campaign, targeted at men.
Excuse me, Matt. Excuse me. You clearly didn't look at Pete.
Like, I actually have an appointment at the VA tomorrow at like 10:30. So I'm assuming after my 10:30 appointment at the VA tomorrow, I'm going to know who my president is. They can no longer do it the night of, which is bizarre to me.
And seen Matt's movie. It is absolutely hysterical.
You don't have to tell me.
I know, but I mean, for everybody out there, I mean,
What was that movie again?
Am I Racist? Very good. By the way, I heard
me right now, the other one.
Rachel
Oh, you have a
Maddow,
movie?
Rachel Maddow, really big fan. I heard a good job by that.
Wait, read it.
I do love it.
But I do think if that were to hold, what it would do is destroy identity politics, which I think ultimately.
We're talking about my movie still, or the election?
No, well, that helped.
Okay.
But black men voting for Donald Trump has the potential to blow up identity politics, which I think is the root cancer that is polluting so much of American discourse.
Yep. You may have noticed that joining us now, we have classicist, historian, host of the Young Heretics podcast, and author of Light of the Mind, Light of the World, my good friend, Spencer Klavan. Spencer, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, it's great to be here. I am not, in fact, Jordan Peterson. You may have noticed. I've transformed over time.
Yes, although you'll have an interesting take on this. Thank you, Clay.
Thank you, guys.
Clay just got up and left. I don't know.
He's gone.
Is it something I said?
He's like, you know what, Clayton? I don't like it either.
I got to hang out with Kid Rock boys.
When Dr. Peterson was with us, and of course Dr. Peterson will be back later on in the evening, we were talking about sacrifice and the sort of Christian narrative that undergirds society. And one of the things that it occurs to me that Christians are called to sacrifice, among other things, in many instances is their sense of self. And religion often gives us a very false sense of self, and Christianity posits that the false sense of self is.
Well, anti-Trumpers have to support Trump for a career. Young Turks, are they already celebrating? We got the other side of it. Is this already over? I don't know. Wait, now we're on the Young Turks. They look like they're celebrating. They're souped up. Hold on. These niggas are like touching penises and shit. What?
I mean, that's almost twice her share in some of these other states. And again, it's not a lot of the vote, but some of these polls in North Carolina have been very, very close. So 0.5% of the vote theoretically could be significant. Again, a lot of this is based on assumptions that.
Why'd you stop playing? What the fuck? Am I still online?
People would vote a different way if they weren't voting for someone. I think there's a lot of reason to question that in a few different ways.
For sure.
But hypothetically, particularly when you have third-party candidates who might appeal to different sides of the race.
So you saw the Sherrod Brown race pop up next to us. We're going to come back to that because that's a critical race to see who's going to control the Senate. That's in Ohio. Sherrod Brown, longtime Democratic senator, very pro-union. We'll come back to that in a second. So as you look at those North Carolina numbers on the screen there, it looks kind of beautiful. But so, of course, the 2% doesn't mean anything yet. Two things about all the numbers John gave you. Number one, I'm going to double down, quadruple down on if people voted for Chase Oliver or Jill Stein, especially in this election, they were so unlikely to vote for either of the other candidates. So if they weren't in the race, I don't know that, like if Chase Oliver wasn't in the race, were they really going to go to Trump instead, those votes? I don't think so. I
Maybe
think
a
the
small
people,
percentage.
And if Stein wasn't in the race, was it really going to go to Kamala Harris when people are super mad about her position on Gaza? I don't think so. I think all of the people voting in those third parties, especially in this election, are just so sick of the two parties, Democratic and Republican parties, and they weren't going to give them a vote under almost any circumstance. So especially because the two sides are so animated. I mean, I know they've been animated for a long time against each other, but I would say never more than in this election. So I wouldn't oversweat the third party votes, quote unquote, taking votes away from Kamala Harris or Donald Trump. The The other thing I wanted to say is that when we talk about, for those of you who haven't tuned in a while, for example, Pigeon with a Purpose said, I've watched TYT for 4 years, finally joined tonight, let's do this. Thank you for saying that, I appreciate it. They're at TYT.com. We got 20% off on TYT.com memberships today. But Sushi for Breakfast said, my first time watching live in 10 years, loved the election coverage, especially the two shoes, aloha to all. So now, so Schuster was on earlier. But the reason I mentioned that is if you haven't watched our election coverage in a while, when you're leading up to the election, there is such a thing as momentum because there's early voting, there's the undecideds making up their minds at the last minute, and according to some of the polling that we saw, Harris was winning the undecideds by 11% as they were coming in. That would be critical. Right? So that is real momentum, especially in the last 5 days. Trump butchered this election. Like, that's why I was telling John in the Damage Report earlier this morning that, like, I have a theory that he was almost subconsciously, not consciously, but subconsciously almost trying to throw the election. I mean, every crazy thing he could say, he said at the end, and that was driving away voters in big droves. But one second, but when we talk about momentum, after the polls are closed, that's not real momentum. That's just how the votes are getting calculated on that night. So, for example, in North Carolina, with 2% of the vote in, you don't know if those are day of voters. If they were day of voters, then that's great news for Kamala Harris. Or if they're early voters, in which case it's more expected news that the early voters were going to go to Kamala Harris, and you're just seeing something that was already expected. So that's why that makes a giant difference.
And on that specifically, like, you have to go to a million different places for a lot of this information, but apparently.
And God forbid we find out tonight. Like I said, hopefully Trump wins and whatever, but let's say tomorrow it's Kamala won and Trump for a third time. Kind of still rock with him, but you didn't follow my advice, so that's why you lost to Kamala if he loses. For the third time you're going to do it, and no, you lose again. And that was my annoying thing about Trump. Why didn't you do the debates? Again, strategically, well, you shouldn't care strategically.
Just as a product of walking 4 miles.
2 miles. But anyway.
To and fro.
Yeah, and thank you, though, for doing that. Because it's not
Watching
because,
the
hey,
coverage,
yeah,
Kamala is
it's
still
because
gonna
you
win,
cared
right?
enough about our
I
democracy.
hate it,
You
but-
cared enough about having a voice that you went through all that. Voters shouldn't have to go through all that to vote. And one of the things that the Republicans do, as they cry about voter fraud, they do voter suppression as a regular course of business in every single election. And the dirtiest, cheapest one is what the most visual one that you see in every election cycle, which is the giant lies. I had a friend, it's actually Dollar Bill from Billions. He's been on the show before. He's a huge Democrat, unlike his character on Billions. And he was helping canvass in Pennsylvania. They got to Lehigh. And because it's a college campus, there aren't that many voting booths. Why? Why? Especially in states controlled by Republican legislatures, they make sure there are less voting booths in Democratic areas. So that's why you'll see a line, and he sent me the video. I mean, it's all the way down the street. You're waiting hours and hours and hours. It shouldn't be like that. You should be able to go in and vote, and boom, you're done. Yeah. There should be enough voting booths for everyone in both Democratic and Republican areas. But you almost never see them in Republican areas. They go in, because they have all the voting booths in the world. In all the giant long lines, have you ever seen one in, I know it's cities versus rural areas, so it's not likely to see it in rural areas. But have you ever seen one in a Republican-controlled area? I've never seen it. It's always in big cities controlled by Democratic places, but with Republican legislatures that are controlling those decisions. So that's voter suppression on a significant scale.
Yeah, and we've reported on polling places being taken out of areas. Atlanta has been hit by rounds of that. Like, it is very specific, and it's why It's so rich to now go through years of Republican insane deranged conspiracy theories about voter fraud and all that when they were doing fully legal voter suppression for years and years. They did it in the wake of the 2020 election. It is harder to vote in Georgia today than it was in the last presidential election. Texas too. It's one of the reasons it's so difficult to flip Texas is because of their efforts to stop it. And I mean, I don't want to speak for everybody, but you seem to imply the same thing. I guess we're hokey or naive that we generally think it's good when everyone votes and we want everyone to vote. We want it to be easy. I want a full day off. Everybody should get a day off to vote. They should also not have to wait until the day of. Everyone should be able to vote early by mail. It should be a national thing. Every Republican should be able to vote 2 weeks before the election from the comfort of their own home. You do not hear Republicans say that on the other side. Instead, they're hyper specific about who they're willing to see vote in any given
thing. In 1862, you wouldn't be arguing that. So shut the fuck up.
Moment. I don't know if you guys talked about it on the show. Stephen Miller had a tweet out that just
said, "We're not gonna know till fucking tomorrow or 2 days from now, actually one.
If you know,
you can know day of, but we can't now know the days off because they just switched all the rules when Trump was president."
Any man who hasn't voted, take him to the polls.
Dummy, can't.
Like, that is, my God. Well, he's pragmatic. He understands that they're not likely to do well if women win. But like, imagine saying, I want one side. Like, I'm excited to see women flooding the polls, but I want men to vote too. I'm one of them. But they're very clear that they want only the specific voters that they like to vote and cut out as much of the rest as possible.
So I want to go to some of the people who are expressing opinions about Michigan, the Arab vote, the Muslim vote, etc. And by the way, the voter purges that they do, and voter suppression they do, I should say, is not just the long lines in the Democratic areas. They also clean out the voter rolls, which you do have to do every once in a while, but they will then emphasize cleaning out Democratic areas more, where they don't actually clean out just the dead people or the people that moved. They clean out actual voters, so then when they go in to vote, they have trouble voting or can't vote. And we've talked about before, they will target Latino names, other names that they think are more likely to be Democratic. Kemp is the king of that in Georgia. That's how he won his election. He was the Secretary of State as he was running for governor. And he purged tons of Democratic voters so that Stacey Abrams couldn't win. So they have all these tricks as they pretend that they are concerned about election integrity. And by the way, if the Democrats were doing that, I'd call them out. So now, Kevin Pilati on Super Chat said, if the Arab American community can hand the Democratic Party a loss in Michigan, do you think that will give them any leverage in upcoming elections, presidential and midterm elections included? Well, Kevin, that's a super hard question. So on the one hand, logically, that makes sense, and then Democrats would have to be worried about appeasing Arab and Muslim American voters and maybe not killing their family members and funding that their slaughter, etc. And maybe that happens, but
they're not promised to kill people because you're a Muslim savage piece of shit. Oh wow, they're commercials. Okay, so of course Kamala won it, and
What have you been saying on the ground in terms for support for Trump from Gen Z voters?
Yeah, so we went to a Trump rally yesterday in Pittsburgh, and we wanted to talk to voters about why they were voting for him. And halfway through my interviews, I realized that every single person I interviewed was Gen Z. There were so many Gen Zers there, so it had to be a video about Gen Z support. So take a look right here. Are you supporting Donald Trump?
We are.
Of course.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. Big time. Yes, I am.
I already voted for it.
The second one Trump side.